Welcome to Let's Talk Legal. I am the co-host, Dr. Calvin T. Mann, and
I'm your Judge Sean B. Perkins. I'm your traffic court judge. My mantra is I bring the court to the classroom and the community.
that's awesome. And so we've gotten a lot of feedback. We had a lot of experience. Judge, you were sharing that you had an experience today at
I had experience this week. I want to, first of all, before we start up, give a shout out to all of the students, faculty, and staff at Henry Ford High School, the Trojans. I had an excellent career day there. I was invited. I met the assistant principal some months ago, Brother Ferguson Bay, and he invited me to the career day, and I got to meet the principal, Principal Richardson. I got to say, the school was phenomenal. It was spotless. They put on a very good production. We first went in the auditorium. They had Grammy Award-winning artists. They had professionals from all walks of life, and they had just an amazing show. And then I got to give a shout out to the young men and women, that the students there. They were very respectable. They had accommodating. They asked high-level questions. It was a very good experience. So I told them, and as a matter of fact, they said they're going to be tuning in this week. So I told them to connect with me, Judge Perkins 313 on Instagram, and then Let's Talk Legal at 7 o'clock. So we should get some questions and some comments from them. So we're encouraging all of our viewers to comment questions, and we're going to put those up, and we're going to make sure that we address each and every question that we have. So with that, I was just a very, very good experience this week. I was proud to say, always proud to say we're from Detroit, and they represented Detroit and Henry Ford High School very well.
That's awesome. It's funny because Brother Bay's son is an Eagle. I just wanted to throw that in there as an alumnus of Ferndale High School. But to get right into this conversation, because we've gotten so much feedback, and so the first thing I want to ask you in plain English, what's the difference between traffic and criminal court?
Well, that gets me to the structure of the court, So, and we'll concentrate just on Detroit and the Wayne County system, state of Michigan system, and it pretty much applies to most places all over the country, But you take 36 District Court. 36 District Court in downtown Detroit, we handle everything. Every case that comes out of the city of Detroit. So you're talking about from a traffic standpoint. Mm-hmm. You're talking about from a criminal standpoint. Mm-hmm. So your speeding tickets or your driving while license suspended tickets, all the way up to your robbery, rape, and murder. If it happened in the city of Detroit, in the city of Detroit city limits, then it's going to come through the 36th District Court. So traffic and criminal. You have, I'm basically your traffic court judge, but on my docket, I get criminal cases as well. So a traffic ticket would be you're running a red light, your failure to stop at a stop sign, or your speeding ticket. But the criminal side of that would be your driving while license suspended, a no insurance misdemeanor. An officer can write you different ways. It's sometimes he can write you for a civil infraction, which I think we discussed that last time. Civil infraction you can pay. Although I always say, don't just pay a ticket. Make sure you know what you're paying, because you don't want that abstract. But on the criminal side, the misdemeanor side, that has to be adjudicated first. So I call myself a traffic court judge, and let me say the chief judge is the power of the chief judge of the 36th District Court. He has the power to assign us to different dockets, but I very well could be on that criminal felony docket. Right. that hears the murders and the felonies as well. So Criminal, you just have your lower level, what I would say lower level misdemeanors where you're 93 days in jail. Then you have 1 year misdemeanors. And we have in 36 District Court, we have a particular judge assigned to those specifically. Your domestic violence, we have a domestic violence judge. Your retail frauds and those type of cases, those go to a particular judge. Now, probably the highest level criminal case that I have is a drunk driving, and then I say a reckless driving, and I say the reckless driving is because a reckless driving is a lot of times harsher than a drunk driving, which your reckless driving is a 6-point offense and it's an automatic 90-day suspension of your driver's license if you're found guilty or you plead to a reckless driving. So your high BAC cases where you're 1.7 or above as far as your BAC, your blood alcohol content that you blow, those cases are 6-point offenses as well, and they come with driver's license sanctions, but usually those are pled down to a lower level drunk driving case. A reckless driving, the city a lot of times does allow those to be pled down too, but if you're pleading just to a reckless driving, that's a 6-point offense, and that's probably one of the most severe punishments that there is as far as what the statute calls for.
So, like a reckless driving, right? So over the last few years, I've seen a number of speeding drivers who fly through the light, crash into a pole. Speeding drivers fly through the light, crash into a car, right? So that's considered reckless driving, and then it could turn into something more.
All right, so let's do that. When you say somebody is reckless driving, that's really a legal conclusion. That's for me to say. Right. Whether they're reckless driving or not. Now, the officer will write a reckless driving ticket because the officer believes that it's reckless. But there's really there's really kind of the definition of reckless driving is the willful and wanton disregard for others on the road. And what does that mean? I've heard it defined as two civil infractions. You just said you're speeding and you're running through a red light, and then you have the accident that follows. Could that be deemed to be reckless? That kind of raises to the level of reckless. I have one case where the young lady was going 100 miles an hour down 75. And the lawyer that she had was pretty good, gave a pretty good argument because, she indicated that she had to go to the bathroom, and that's why she did it. But so it was not an issue of whether she was going 100 or not. There was no dispute in that. The lawyer said though, hey, why is that reckless? That's a 31 plus, because they have a civil infraction, 31 plus mile an hour over the speed limit, which is a 4-point offense, but the fine is a lot less. You don't have the license sanctions and things like that, the automatic license sanctions. So I thought that was a pretty good, because all they said was you're going 100. So those are the kind of difficult questions that I'll have to answer on a traffic related thing of whether that is reckless or not. But that's the distinction.
Right. So her 4 points just took her insurance through the roof.
Her 4 points took her insurance through the roof. And remember, last week we talked about your points accumulating. Once you get 6 points, you get that letter from the Secretary of State, and that letter is saying, "Hey, we might want you to come in and retest. We might want you to come in and do some things." But then when you get 12 points on your license, you're cooked. It's over with. You have your license taken away for I don't know the particular time, but your license is gone.
Gone.
Yes.
What does judges look for? Like, what are the first few things you notice as a judge when they come into court? What are the things that you're looking for, depending on the case or whatever the circumstances may be?
Well, you kind of gauge whether the truthfulness of someone. So you're trying to assess the person, and you're trying to see, okay, is their story plausible? You know, and you want to know on the defendant's side and the officer's side. Because, you know, in my position, people think that, oh, because they're an officer, then you should believe them more, or they have more credibility. No. Everybody is treated the same on that. You know, I can't give any more deference to the officer as I can to the defendant. And so I want to judge your credibility. Are you to be believed? You know, and when the thing about having the officers in my court, a lot of times you see the same officers all the time. You know, most of them, they're traffic court. A lot of them are traffic officers, and that's what they do. So you get to know them, and you get to know the type of tickets they have. We talked about that last week. There's officers, when you're going 5 to 10 miles an hour over, they're going to stop you. They're going to give you a ticket. Now, is that ticket written wrongly? No, you were speeding. But, you know, and could they give you a break? They could, but they don't want to. And that's their prerogative. So I can't blame that officer or hold an officer at any harm with that, you know. But if the officer comes in and tells me that, you know, I had one case, and I won't get into any officers' names, but the officers on my radar. This one young lady, she was at school in Big Rapids, and how I heard it was she was here on a break. She got her car worked on, and she went back to school while the mechanic had her car. Okay. Now this is not your Goodyear or Bell Tire service center, right? This is
Craig.
Yeah, Craig up the street, and he's gone. You know, so they wrote her for reckless driving. And you know, when I'm reading the police report, I'm seeing that they never caught the person. The person drove off, so they got the plate, and they did that. So when she comes in, this was before the trial date. Remember, we talked about arraignments, pre-trials, and trials. So she comes in on a pre-trial date, and she says, "Judge, that was not me. That was not me. I have proof that I was in Big Rapids. I have my job at I think she worked at Wendy's or something. I have my time card. She goes to school at Fair State.
Right.
I got my time card. I'll even have my boss come in and tell you that I was at work at that date and that time." Yeah, you know. So trial comes up. The prosecutor said, "Yeah, my officer ID'd the person. When we got down to it, it came back that they didn't. They said they saw somebody, but they never even stopped the car. They took the ticket, issued the ticket in the mail, and then she brings all of her material, the time card, she has the boss waiting to be called on Zoom, and everything. Well, she came ready. And initially, she didn't even speak up at first. She didn't speak up, and that's what I know. A lot of times, you know, people want to. We talked about letting your attorney speak, and sometimes the attorney doesn't get it across like they want it. And she didn't say anything. She let the attorney then, and then she reminded me, "Judge, I told you. I remember. I was like, oh, that is you." And come to find out, she had everything. So that officer, I won't forget who that officer is. I haven't seen him since, but those are the officers that lose their credibility with me.
That's a significant point. So one of the things I want to highlight is the word plausible. If you can define what that means in layman's terms.
Well, plausible, is it possible? Could it have happened? You know, in this instance, it wasn't even plausible that's her. You know?
Yeah, because they didn't have any evidence.
What really got me was the city attorney says, you know, she shouldn't be taking her car to get it. She shouldn't be taking it to Pookie or Ray Ray to get her car done. And I'm thinking, come on now. You know, this is a college student. She's on a budget she's going to try to get her car going any way she can.
And sometimes Pookie and Ray Ray and Lil Craig and them get it done.
They get it done.
They get it done.
Hey, they must have got it done this time because the car damn sure was working and it got away from the police.
Right. So that makes
if that story was even true.
Right. Which is absolutely the case for some people that's dealing with court. Some people really come in and can stand on business and tell the truth and do it in a way that you yourself, the judge, can see the honesty through the paperwork and everything. This next question is, what tells you a person is taking the situation seriously?
Well, you know something, though? I'm going to say that most defendants that come, I mean, I'm going to say 99% of the defendants that come in are taking it seriously. Because if they weren't, they wouldn't even come in. You know, a lot of them have gotten to the point where you know, if it's their first ticket, they're like, I've never had a ticket before, and you know, or if it's their 50th ticket, you know, and they've probably had warrants, you know, 50 warrants. They're like, it's time. I'm tired of looking over my shoulder. I want to get this stuff taken care of, and they want to get it behind us. So I think most are taking it very, very seriously, and in me, they know. I think that I've developed a reputation that I'm going to be fair. I'm going to be fair.
You're right.
And so I think I get the people in the community, they know that, so they're more willing to come into my courtroom and get their matters taken care of. So at least I hope I develop that reputation that I'm going to be fair. I'm going to give them a fair shot. I'm going to listen to them, and I'm going to give them their opportunity. Now, I like them to speak through their lawyer, but sometimes people just need to get things off their chest, and if I let you get it off your chest.
So, like, because as this conversation was going, and you know, traffic versus criminal, we have seen several different videos, not just from you going viral, but from the criminals court going viral. Like, so a lot of the misnomers of criminal court we kind of touched on, but if you can touch on the fact that people who entered the court properly, right, gets a fair shot. I think a lot of times when you walk into court, when you walk into criminal court, right now we're talking criminal court. You coming in sweats. You coming in have your T-shirt is dirty. Your hair is not done. You're coming in with disrespect. Like, if you can touch on how that really, especially in criminal court, because we're covering traffic and criminal, how that really affects, it could really affect your outcome, especially in Michigan, because, you know, in Michigan, they get 2 years longer in prison. In Michigan, that was the average. That's more than anybody in the country. So when you're talking about criminal court, you're coming in criminal court, you want to come in there right. So touch on that if you can.
Well, I'm going to say this. I'll say this. Times change. Times change. You go back and you look at the pictures, in the 1920s and 1930s and 40s. All the little kids had button-down shirts on,
right,
and knickers and things like that, and a sport coat or overcoat on. And you fast forward to the 21st century. Some kids don't even have a suit, and things like that. That was normal wear then. I don't put so much emphasis on dress and attire, except for the fact that, like, I don't want you coming in a robe. I guess the world knows that I don't want to see that. After all that went viral. So I don't. And then we have to we took another leap here some years ago with Zoom, and COVID brought us into Zoom. Now, COVID, horrible thing, but Zoom court, it's a beautiful thing for people, because I would say if I got a traffic ticket, I would rather be able to zoom in on my phone or wherever I'm at work or wherever. I don't have to come downtown, pay the $20 for parking and things like that, take the day off work and things like that to handle a ticket, especially something where people have to make a decision. Do I really feel passionate that I did not do what that officer said I did, and I want my day in court, but it cost me as much to get down there and to to take the day off work than it would to pay the ticket. You see, so now Zoom court. So I think that makes another element of relaxation, because you're in your home. You just woke up in the morning. You just think that, and I tell them when I start, listen, get yourself together, because you're in court, and whether it's Zoom court or whether we still I still want to keep sort of the same decorum. Now I'm not telling you can't wear your sweat top or something like that, but don't come in your pajamas. Do not come to my court with the what do you call that, the shower what do they call those things, the shower cap on. Don't do that. That's one of my pet peeves.
I'm with you. It's funny, man, because I make fun of my daughter about that, right? You walking around with this bonnet. There you go. I tell them, here's my line. You wouldn't wear the bonnet to the club, do you? Nah. So why do you want to wear it to the classroom? Right. I mean, to the courtroom. Right. This is your freedom. Yeah. That's back to what exactly what I was saying.
You're trying to hit on.
Yeah, because what happens is, again, it take me back to several court cases of being in the space, but how you come into that court, especially if you got a crime, man, I cannot tell you how. I know I sent you a video the other day, and I just cannot tell you how we are community-wise that we are absent of the law, right? How we are not respectful of the law, and it causes so much more heartache. The crimes, right? And when I grew up, where we were growing up, we had a young man that was involved with jail so much in Oakland County that, people don't realize that the parent is being taxed.
Yeah.
You got to pay for that.
You got to pay for it.
The kid goes to juvenile, somebody got to pay for that. And so they're taxing the parent, so how you come in that court is key, especially for a crime. Now, I understand what you're saying about court, because
I see where you're going and what you're hitting on. It is first of all, we talked about this last week. You have to do whatever you can to influence this judge, or whatever judge you're in front of, to that you need to see it my way more than you need to see it the other person on the other side's way. And little things like attire and things like that, when you break it down, they could matter. When I was a practicing lawyer, I had a young man that had a drug case out of Ohio. And this is part of Ohio where he was actually going through Ohio to West Virginia with these drugs. So he had a lot of pills on him. And they catch him. He's got a case. And every time we went down there, he was suited and booted. He took it. So as we're going through there working this thing out, the prosecutor himself looked at it, and he liked my client. He appreciated my client coming and taking the matter seriously. The effort that he did. He came in there, shirt, tie, suit, every time. And that was part of how I was able to help influence to get this man the deal that he got. And then when we got down to the last bit of it, he was going to do 2 years in prison, if I remember correctly. And we discussed that as working it out as a flat 2 years. Now, in Ohio, their system of felonies are graded, and maybe a number one felony is just use a 1 to 5, and
Right.
1 is a murder, and 5 is a lower level felony. Well, at some point on that scale, it determines how much probation, how much parole you're going to do, how much tail you're going to have, meaning after you get out of prison, how much supervision you're going to have to add on to that. And it was agreed, the prosecutor and I, where that he was going to be a flat 2. But the felony charge was maybe in the area of felony 3 or something like that, or somewhere in there, and that was required and he was willing to drop that down to the next level, so he can just have the flat 2 and he goes home after 2 years, and part of that was because he liked my client and he liked my client's the way he dressed. So that does hold a lot of weight sometimes. And when you're really going through things, presentation, you have one time to present yourself. You know what I'm saying? The first, your initial presentation is almost everything. And he presented well, and the prosecutor recognized that.
Yeah, because that preparation, that's decency.
Yeah, respect
for
for the system and the
respect is huge.
Yes,
right. Cooperation, with yourself, with your legal team. It's all those things that play a part in somebody's decision. So I just really wanted to get to that that situation. Right. Another question: can you share an example of how the same charge can go 2 different ways?
Well, it can, when you talk about 2 different ways, how you can either go to jail or you can get found guilty or not guilty. It's all about the evidence. It's all about the evidence. Remember last time.
Yeah.
Don't talk, you just might walk.
The tag.
That's that. So, all of that plays into. So that's where every case is different. Every case is has its own nuances, and it's just all about what type of evidence that the people have. And when I say the people, the state, they're representing the people of the state of Michigan, and that's who your crime is against. I have a lot of sovereign citizens saying,
Yeah.
who is that? I mean,
that was one of my shows.
Yeah, I get it. And something. The funny thing is that I haven't seen a lot of those guys lately. I don't know. A couple of them I know aren't going to show up because they know that they're going to have to do that 30 days. But I haven't seen a sovereign citizen in a not that I'm asking to see any right now, but I haven't seen a sovereign citizen yet in a minute. But you have just the evidence of what type of evidence the people have, and to make their case. It's going to determine which way it's going to go. It's going to determine, and also, what is very important from a lawyer standpoint is knowing your judge. You have to know your judge. How is your judge going to rule on certain evidence? How is your judge going to rule on certain what type of rulings this particular judge is going to make?
Right.
That makes a big deal to a prosecutor or a defense attorney in how they're going to proceed with their case. If the city knows this judge is a stickler for a certain issue, on this set of facts, they might play out a little different. They might even say, "All right, we're not going to continue on with this case. We'll voluntarily dismiss the case." But it's just all about what type of facts that they have, what type of evidence that they have, what type of proof do they have, and then their judge is going to play a big part in how they're going to move forward and proceed with their case or not proceed at all.
So that really brings me to this one question that earlier in this conversation, you talked about the different judges having different assignments. And one of the things that I speak out against is domestic violence.
Yeah.
I've received award out of Maryland, speaking up against 2 awards, one out of Atlanta, one out of Maryland, speaking up against domestic violence. And I know during COVID, it was off the charts. If you can share what you've seen on the good side, what are some of the things you've seen from the court's perspective that has helped, I guess, prevent some of the domestic violence, or how strict have they become around domestic violence down at the court?
Well, I tell you, the 36th District Court, our Chief Judge, McConaughey, he has gone to, at lengths to give services to the people in the Detroit community or anybody that comes through the 36th District Court in the form of classes that help prevent domestic violence, in the form of street court, where you have people with homeless issues, in the form of where their cases, if you're dealing with homelessness and you go through this program. I think we touched on that last time. You go through this program, your cases can be dismissed, and all your fines and costs can potentially be waived. It doesn't necessarily mean they are going to all be waived, but a lot of times they are if you can get through those. If you get through that, and in the form of veterans court, drug treatment court, and we have the best drug treatment court in the country. So domestic violence, I've never been on the domestic violence docket. What I have done for defendants that come to me, because if you have a domestic violence charge, you're going to go to a particular judge.
Right. But
I've had people come to me that have aggressive issues where they've violent among store people or store owners or other people, and we identify that. We've sent them to different classes, anger management classes, and you know something. The people that I've sent to anger management class, believe it or not, I think each and every one of them has told me, Judge, I really needed that. I really needed that. So domestic violence, though, let's talk about domestic violence as the criminal aspect of it. Domestic violence and pedophilia are 2 cases where the rules of evidence are lightened. So, say for example, person gets charged with domestic violence. The court knows, the police knows, pretty much everybody knows that the individual that's the victim of domestic violence, typically they call the police in that instance, and then after that's over with, the person may have gone to jail.
Right.
They end up making up, and the person doesn't want to go forward anymore.
Right.
You hope that that's the only instance that happens, but the courts know, and they've designed the rules of evidence as such that they don't need the complaining witness to make their case. Mm-hmm. They can go off the 911 call. Mm-hmm. They can go off of the police report that you filed and what you said in that police report, because they know that individual will probably end up either sweet talking, and you stay in those situations for a lot of different reasons.
Yes,
you know, a lot of different reasons. One, you may not have anywhere else to go.
Yes.
Two, you may genuinely love this person, and you may hope that this person's changed, and you're trying to change this person. But it's just so many different reasons. That's why the rules of evidence allow that in a domestic violence case. Then you talk about pedophilia. Well, I always say everybody likes what they like, you know, and these pedophiles, if they like little kids, they're not going to stop liking little kids.
Right.
So the rules of evidence are designed as such that you do not need all you need is prior allegations, and those things can be brought into court. Where if I'm a drug dealer, you can't take my past drug dealing crimes unless it's a specific and bring it into this case.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? In those cases of pedophilia and things like that, you can bring those things in because this is just who you are.
Right.
And you're not going to stop. So we need to have more, we need to relax the rules on this case because this is just who you are.
So I want to really state this, that if you are in a domestic violence case, you can seek help with D-Win, right?
Yes.
You can call D-Win there and understand, I say this all the time, but if everybody keep their hands to themselves, right, and we can improve in our communication, we don't have to be physical with one another. So that's just a suggestion to the audience that if you are in a situation, really get yourself out of the situation. And I understand that you might be dependent on this person, right? You might have some issues, some mental health issues, some accountability issues, whatever the case may be.
Or you just don't have anybody else to turn to.
And that's a big one.
Yeah,
because we see that in the foster care. When they age out in the foster care, it's a big thing. That's a human trafficking, significant of human trafficking occurs when they age out. So yes, but if you are in that situation, get the help. And one of the things I always say, do whatever you got to do not to go back, because if I did it once, it's a guarantee that I've not gotten better, that I may do it again. Right?
Absolutely.
And so, and like you were saying, what you were offering is huge to know that a person can get some help.
Absolutely. And the thing about crimes in the 70s, they put a total ban on the death penalty. And what the study said was the death penalty does not deter a crime.
A crime.
You know, and what is our system of justice? What is it designed for? First, it's designed retribution, and it's designed also so you don't go back and reoffend. You know, so there's got to be some retribution in there. There's got to be some punishment in there, but it's also supposed to be. Now, now let me say that I gotta because it's not a rehabilitation, and from what I'm told in the prison system is not much rehabilitation.
Yeah.
Now I do imagine that they have services for people who want to seek them out and things like that.
Right.
But at the 36th District Court, that we have a whole lot of services, and that's why we encourage people to come to court to handle their issues. So we started off talking about the court and how it's structured. And like I say, we're a district court, and we're sort of we can punish. I can sentence someone up to a year, and I don't know if we touched on this last week. I can sentence someone up to a year in jail.
In traffic court.
In traffic court, or you know. Just we don't make the distinction so much. I'm just a 36th district court judge. I'm a district court judge. So a misdemeanor case, I can sentence someone up to a year in jail. And now that statute has to give me the authority to. So a driving while license suspended will be 93-day jail sentence. But the year is on some misdemeanor cases. But after you get past the year in jail, you're going over to the circuit court. And the circuit court is the next level up in our system of justice. So somebody doesn't like my traffic court ruling. And they have an informal hearing. So let's talk about just a speeding ticket. You can have an informal hearing. Usually you go down to the informal hearing room. It's the officer or somebody that's representing the police department, and they're saying, hey, you want a blocking traffic, $175. And then you say, no, I want to move this up to a formal hearing because I wasn't speeding. And I don't feel I should have to pay, and I want a formal hearing. That's your right. Sometimes I tell them, you got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them too. Right. But they want to come to a formal hearing. Then that formal hearing comes to either myself or somebody that has a traffic court docket. We have a number of other judges that have a traffic court docket. Right. And then that's when the officer has to come in. The officer that wrote the ticket has to come in. The officer doesn't necessarily come in at the formal hearing, informal hearing they call it. But the formal hearing, the officer has to come in. And then they put their both sides to me. Say they don't like my ruling, and I find that the officer was right in writing the ticket. Now they can appeal that, and they can go to the circuit court. So it's just like any criminal case. You didn't like that I found you guilty and sentenced you to 93 days for a misdemeanor driving while license suspended. Now you're going to appeal my decision, and the city can appeal my decision. I dismissed the case, and they felt that the case was dismissed improperly. They can go appeal my decision to the circuit court, and then it goes to the circuit court, and then from that court you go to the appellate court, and then you go to the Michigan Supreme Court. So that's our levels of judicial. The judiciary, that's the levels that we have.
So it's a tier.
There's a tier.
It's a tier, which makes sense.
Which makes sense.
It makes sense because you come in at a certain way.
Then you don't like the Supreme Court, what the Supreme Court says. Right. You can take it to the federal district court.
Right.
Then it can go up through there, and if it rises, if the case has enough legal, what would you say, bearing or enough interest, and maybe it's something that hasn't ever been litigated before, the Supreme Court, they can decide whether they want to hear it or not.
Wow. So that's another thing that you have to deal with if you're moving. So that brings us to the community question that we got from last week's show. And this community question is pretty deep. And it asks, at what point can a plaintiff in a civil case for personal injury not have counsel?
All right. And let me start by saying we're encouraging everyone to put your comments in the comments section, ask questions, and we want to be able to get those questions and bring those questions, and we want to be able to address each and every question if time permits on the next episode of the show. That's a good question. In the legal system, you don't have to have an attorney. You don't have to have an attorney. We call them a pro se litigant, and the issue, though, and you see it, that's what the sovereign citizens do in their criminal cases. That's what they do. So it's the same as a civil case. You don't have to have an attorney, but the problem that you come into is that you're a plaintiff and you're trying to represent yourself on a automobile case. You're fighting the insurance company. Well, what does the insurance company have? The insurance company has a battery of lawyers.
A battery.
And this is all they do. Every single solitary day.
And a battery means multiple.
Multiple lawyers. And Even the one lawyer that they put on the case, this is all he does or she does every single solitary day. And they know how to answer your complaint. They know how to. You have to have. They make you put affirmative defenses in your complaint. You have to answer those. You're compelled to answer those. And if you don't answer those, then you will be. Your case will be dismissed. So you have to know procedure. We talked about procedure. You can win a case. You can win a case by knowing the law, or you can win a case by knowing the procedure. You see what I'm saying? What do I have to do next? They file an answer. How long does it take for me to do I get to answer that complaint and things like that? Now, these rules are readily accessible, especially with the internet and the things like that. But you're making yourself. You're trying to squeeze. I don't know what somebody's done 3 years of law school and then they've been practicing for I don't know how long. You're trying to squeeze all of that into one case, and you're trying to can it be done? Yes, it can be done. It can be done, but is it advisable? Not really.
You need to go to law school to do that. You're up against a lot of lawyers.
You're up against an individual that this is all that this individual does on a daily basis, and that just one case that he has or she has with you, and they have multiple cases like that a day that they're doing. So, can you represent yourself? Yeah, and I'll say this also, a judge sees that, and they may relax the rules a little bit for a pro se litigant because they want this person to have his day in court.
Right.
And then they also want these proceedings to go on. And then they're not going to let this hotshot lawyer over here just pummel this person when this person, has an actual claim. Why somebody wants to do that, I don't know. Maybe it's because they don't want to pay. And that gets me to in a civil case. You hear the lawyers on TV, you don't have to pay. Well, that's brought upon because they want the individual to be able to get into court. And if that was a barrier, if you had to pay just to get into court, then most people that got into an accident, most people that had a slip and fall at a restaurant or a store or anywhere, most people wouldn't be able to get their day in court because they don't have the money to hire that lawyer up front. So those lawyers have to take those cases without. Well, let me predicate that. They don't have to take the cases. They choose the cases that they want to take, but they cannot charge that. They have to wait to get their money out of the settlement. So it's really on the lawyer to make sure that the lawyer knows that they have a good case that's worth something. So anybody that's ever called a personal injury lawyer or anything like that, it's going to be a vetting process in that case. Well, first of all, if you're in an auto accident in Michigan, do you have insurance? If you don't have insurance, see you later. And the rules are different in each state. I had a buddy that's in Georgia, and it was an issue of him coming out of the gas station, this young lady coming in the gas station. They say it was his fault, but, he begs to differ, right? And when he talked to me about it, he says, "Hey, they didn't even have any insurance." I say, "Well, in Michigan they wouldn't have a case." Well, he gets a letter from one of the biggest law firms in the country. He's being sued. So in Georgia, I'm coming to find out that it doesn't matter whether you have insurance or not. Really? She still had a claim.
Wow.
She still had a claim.
Because you were at fault.
Because you were at fault. But here in Michigan, if you don't have insurance, you don't have a claim.
Right. But in Georgia, if you don't have insurance, you got a claim.
If the other individual is at fault.
Wow. And so she decided to sue
She decided to sue.
because you did have insurance.
Because you did have insurance. And a lot of people, I get a lot of those calls, especially when I was practicing a lawyer. You know, some people would say, "Hey, I got this," and you have your what they call a first party lawsuit, and the first party lawsuit is with your insurance company. Are you providing the services that you say you're supposed to provide? If not, I'm gonna sue you for those services. Then your third party lawsuit is the lawsuit that the individual that you hit, say you hit somebody and they're saying my neck hurts, you know, and I want to sue you. That's the third. That's the third party lawsuit.
Right.
So you know. In Michigan, you have to have insurance to go forward with that, and if not, so and in Michigan, it's a crime to not have insurance on your vehicle. That is a misdemeanor.
That is a misdemeanor.
Yes, so you're
Punishable
compelled
up to
93 days in jail and or $500 in fines.
So no insurance gets you 93 days.
Yep. Maximum possible
Maximum
penalty. Maximum. Now, do they sentence somebody to 93 days for that? Probably not. But the maximum possible penalty is 93 days in jail.
And so there's a pivot in that process then. Maybe a different type of outcome.
Well, generally, it's
Yeah.
you're gonna have to pay one way or the other.
You're going to have to pay one way or the other.
You know, so
Well, that's interesting because when you talk about a minute ago, you were talking about how if you weren't happy with the judgment, you could take it to a circuit court.
take it to a circuit court.
So in this case, where the person wants to represent itself, if they're not happy with the outcome, they can take it to circuit court.
Well, they can appeal. They can appeal the
Okay.
decision. But again, you're getting into, you know,
Yeah.
a whole lot of heavy. If you're getting into a whole lot of heavy lifting because you're talking about appellate. So a lot of you have trial lawyers,
Right.
and that's somebody that's going to represent you at the trial stage,
Right.
And then that's a whole nother practice is appellate practice, and you have lawyers that just do appellate work. That's all they do, and the appellate process is nuanced because you have to dig through all of that transcript and all of those things, and you have to find those issues that you can raise on appeal, and that have a likelihood of winning. You can't just throw stuff really at the wall to see if it make it stick. You know, you have to find those issues in there and that's a whole nuanced practice. You know, so you know when you're talking about representing yourself on a individual level without an attorney, you're going into an area of why not go pay this lawyer? The fee is a third. Now you can negotiate with the lawyer. That's the maximum the lawyer can get.
Right.
Is a third. So if you got $1 million case, why not go ahead and pay him get him the third, him or her the third, and they get their $330,000 and you get your $666,000. Now the other issue is that the services that you get,
Right.
on top of that, you're paying out of that settlement too. So the lawyer's going to get his third or her third off of the top of the $1 million. The other services are going to come out of your $666,000. You know, your medical services, your things like that. So we're really getting into when we get our professional on, and we're inviting professionals in every aspect of the law to
Yes.
come on and join us. It's a good time to throw that in there. We're inviting those professionals in, and we're getting together a list now. We've got some calls last week from a handful of lawyers that want to come on, and we're going to bring them on. So for our audience and our viewers, bring your questions. We want your questions, and we're going to get professionals in each areas of the law. So if we don't address your question the next week, then we'll probably have somebody coming on, and you just stay tuned, and you'll get your question answered.
Yeah, we'll get the answer.
We're going to get the answer to them. So we're going to invite those professionals on, and we're letting everybody know in here in the Southeast Michigan, Detroit area. And you don't have to be just from Southeast Michigan, but we want the high level people in their fields to come on in and sit back and have a chat with us on Let's Talk Legal.
Yeah, and because again, we're bringing the law, and it's beneficial. We're bringing the law, and what good is a gift if we're not willing to share it?
Well, we're going to share it.
And so we're sharing it and making it practical for you, the consumer, the people, the community, right?
And
so,
again, we're what we want to do is, like I say, Dr. Mann and I, we didn't grow up with lawyers as our
oh man, I'll tell you a quick
relatives.
story.
Go ahead.
So my brother was in high school, and he went on a senior trip. And when he went on the senior trip, he went up north with some buddies. Well, they had an incident, and my brother had went on a cruise. He had this machete, and he flashed the machete. They caught the light because there was a bunch of them coming that way, right? Anyway, they up in one of those small rural towns. He gets scooped up, and we got to get a lawyer. Now, my brother's up there, and he can't afford a lawyer, right? So my mom, mother of 7, huge family.
She going to make it happen, though.
She going to make it happen, right?
Of course.
Right? And so there was a whole bunch of stuff that took place throughout the family to get it done, right? So I got to say the man's name, Albert Hatchett.
Albert Hatchett. Come on, man. He's a legend.
Shut that boy down, man. Shut the whole town down.
He's a legend.
When my brother came home, man, we were so happy. But this is why it's so important to know who you can go to as a lawyer that can get it done. Because he got my brother home. He got it done.
All right, Albert. I never got to meet Albert Hatchett, but I had the privilege to go into undergrad with his daughter, Ayanna Hatchett. Her and I went to Hampton University together. She became a lawyer before I did, and now she's a practicing attorney. And hopefully one day, Attorney Hatchett, I was about to call her Ayanna, but Attorney Hatchett, you can come on in and join us on the show. But yeah, I mean, he's a legend.
He's flat out a legend, right?
That's it.
So the fact that we were able to get him was absolutely amazing.
Well, that's a mother's gonna do what a mother's gonna do, right?
Yeah. Well, we deep. You know that.
I know.
Yeah, we deep.
But you said, hey, mother of 7.
Yeah.
She's making ends meet, but
Yeah.
she goes and finds the resources and the wherewithal.
The bread.
And worth every penny.
But I have to explain that when you got a good, wholesome, family or whatever, when that situation occurred, they put on the show. She put on the show, and so that I guess that wraps us up.
Does it? Yeah, that's the time flies, doesn't? I want to say this. I want to thank our viewers. I want to thank everybody for watching, and I want you to encourage your friends and family to join us on Let's Talk Legal. I always say, to end on that. I always say to people, that's why it's so important to associate yourself with a lawyer, a good lawyer. Yeah. And I know that the fee may be something that it seems to be astronomical, but
right.
Just like Mr. Mann said, Dr. Mann said, his mom, they grew up not so much means. They had a family of 7, but moms went and she did what she had to do, and she got the best, and the outcome what, and it doesn't always happen that way, but at the end of the day, you give yourself a fighting chance. But you come into court, and if you make that relationship with that lawyer, you can take that and you say, hey, can I pay you on this? I'm sure that if you have the relationship, you will be able to work something out with that.
And it actually was a relationship, because my parents come from that Motown stuff, music. My parents had, so she knew who to go to.
She knew who to go to.
She knew exactly who to go to.
Everybody probably knew who to go, but a lot of people couldn't get to him.
Couldn't get to him.
They couldn't get to him.
It was one phone call.
But that's making yourself with a relationship, and that's what we do. So let's talk legal. It's another episode.
Yes, sir.
And enjoy being with you. I'm Judge Perkins, Judge Perkins 313 on Instagram. Connect with me. And I always say, you don't talk, you just might walk.
You just might walk.